So first, thank you for coming. I mean, it really means a lot to me to see all of you here. And today I get to thank Carl and Barbara as colleagues, right? And I used to come in here and tell Carl when I was getting my own stuff framed that this looks like a really great place to work. He said it is. And now that I'm here, I agree completely. It's a fantastic place to work. But I was pleasantly surprised when they asked me to have another show. I thought, oh my gosh, I mean, it's not even been 3 years, so I'm really happy to have this stuff up. I want to mention at the beginning, part of it's, I guess, on my statement over there, that April was Autism Awareness Month. And I mention this because I have Asperger's syndrome. People don't mention that a whole lot anymore, but it's a form of autism. And I think that that's what enables me to do such repetitive work, precise work, and to do it for so long. And a lot of people think, oh, that's so tedious, and I think it's just art. And it's just what I do. So that's about all I'll say about that stuff. Yeah, I'm just going to say a little bit about my process, how I did these pieces. Some of it has changed from my earlier work. So a year ago, I started renting studio space over in the Murray Building. So on the 3rd floor above the caffeinery. And in that, I don't know, a lot of people come in, I don't think they notice this, but I have some phrases in Marathi. Marathi is related to Hindi, and it's a language that I learned when Maggie and I were living in India for more than 3 years. And the sign says, this is just the beginning. Put pen to paper, put your phone far away, and focus, all right? So this line about this is just the beginning, well, that is true. I still feel like this is just the beginning. Things are happening. Put the pen to paper, because the only time that my Asperger-related anxiety disappears is when I put pen to paper. So this is maybe one reason why I do big drawings with lots of lines. The phone part is the hardest part. Like, who cares? Like, do I really need to see a text immediately? So I set 45-minute chunks. 45 minutes, put the phone away, and then I can go over and look at it for 15 minutes if I want. So anyway, that's what I do with that. And then focus. I mean, so when I'm actually doing a work or a piece, just focus, think of this, nothing else. Nothing else really matters at the moment. So I want to talk a little bit more about the beginnings, right? So beginnings, as Carl was saying, is kind of over at the other end with these line drawings. And I'll just mention this one. This big one is called Lithium. The only reason it's called Lithium is because that's the name of a song that was playing in my earbuds when I did the last line. That's the only reason, because I can never think of how to name these things. But this was the first piece that I drew when I started renting studio space. And even though it took me a long time, I think this, I'll tell you, I think it's one of my best ones in terms of my line work. Still, when I finished, I thought, why do I have a studio? I could do this at home. I did it on my drafting table. I rented a studio space to let loose, right? So I could move my arms, right? Really get into the art in ways that this feels kind of restrained, right? It's really precise. I don't mind being precise, right? But so that's what I was thinking. What I really want to do is have more movement. So I taped a 40 by 50 sheet of paper to the floor and literally started throwing paint on the floor. The more I threw paint on the floor, I felt like a sense of joy. It was just, I was just playing. And I thought, well, this is not serious. Well, stop thinking. And when I stopped thinking, this is when I had the greatest discoveries and made the greatest breakthroughs. And so a lot of what you see on the wall came out of those experiments. They're not all the ones with throwing paint on the floor, but some of them at the end are, and I'll talk about that. But yeah, so I want to know, like, why do I have a studio if my work's going to remain so neat? But I'll say a little bit more about beginnings and the Murray Building, because now a lot of things are happening over there. And I'm just going to say, it's a hub for art right now, local artists, and it's a place that maybe you want to be. So there are a few spots left if you're looking for a studio space. We have an event coming up on the 18th, it's a Saturday from 12 to 3, it's an open house. We're also planning on several open studio nights where you can come and kind of see our studio space. Mine is really like a gallery as well. I've got shelving, lots of art there. Like I said, this is a very small slice of what I have because I spend a lot of time in my studio. Yeah, and also I just say that there are a couple of artists, at least here from the Murray Building, and we benefit greatly from interacting with one another. And I've learned so much from them, and they're often in my studio giving me critiques. And one of them said, "Don't mention me." They won't my name, but that person helped me curate everything on the wall. So, and even helped me in thinking about how to design frames. And I'm the one working in the frame shop. So the title of my show is called Precisely Abstract. And I think that maybe I've already made sense of that, right? So a lot of my work is very precise, yet it's also abstract. I have transitional phases too. So these tiny drawings interspersed kind of indicate a movement from the line work down at that end, and then bringing in more colors. So rather than just one color, introducing more colors, and then introducing more shapes. And as you go down the wall, you continue to see lines, but it gets more and more abstract, right? So moving away from the line work over there. A lot of people have asked me about this one here. Some people said they are mesmerized when they look at it, and I am too, and that's why I did it. This one I call Samudra. It means ocean in Sanskrit. And I was thinking a lot about Agnes Martin. She's one of my favorite artists. She died, I think, in 2000. I'm going to get it wrong if I say it, so I won't say it. I think it's 12, but anyway. But she did a lot of these like grid paintings where it's just very precise in these lines, and you look at it and think like, what in the world, what is she doing? But they are stunning, and when you see them in person, I mean, I saw one in person in Boston, I almost started crying. Of course, my wife said, "Well, there's nothing wrong with crying." And I said, "That's not the point. It was just that it was so amazingly overwhelming that from across the room I recognized it, and I just was almost shaking." So anyway, so I wanted to do this as, in a sense, an homage to her. But I have done a series of 9x12s doing this type of work. And I had a whole bunch of them, and I was sitting at my drafting table, and I looked over in the box, and there were several, and I thought, what would happen if I did this on a large scale? All right? And so I laid out the paper, drew the pencil lines, and I counted the rows. I swear I counted. I can count. 1 to 50, and when I got to the top of the other one, it was 51. And I counted. So when I did the lines going across, when I got to the top, I was off by about ½ an inch because I didn't use a T-square. I wasn't precise enough when I was doing this. So I had to erase lines, pencil lines, about how much, and redo it. Right? So it's like, right, this is an exercise in precision. Each one of these is a ½ an inch and then an 1/8 of an inch in between. Right? So there's the precision, but if you don't plan all the rest, it doesn't really work out so well. And then I just used a cheap little number 2 round brush with turquoise acrylic ink and just did the marks. And when I started these rows, because they were closest to me on my drafting table, it'd take 20 to 25 minutes, depending on what kind of how I was thinking. As I got up further, I had to reach, right? And reach. And my back didn't like it a whole lot. And I could only tilt it a little bit, because if you tilt it way up so that it's closer, if you tilt it like that, well then the ink's gonna run, all right? So then when I got up to probably here on, they were taking 30 and 40 minutes because I have to reach, and then you can't put your well of ink right next to yourself, right? You've got to put it on a flat surface. Anyway, these are the technicalities of why it took so long. But I think that what I really like about this is it shows, again, it's precision. So it's like the line work. And it's, in a sense, very soothing. Another friend was asking me beforehand how I felt when I drew this. I mean, when I painted this, I said, I don't know, what do you mean? I struggle with like feeling, like what do you mean by feelings? Or what precise feeling do you mean, right? So I said, I don't know, I mean, I felt good. And it's just like the same as when I pull lines. It's like that is the moment when anxiety disappears and I feel great. So that's what I'll say about that. I already mentioned the miniatures. Then basically from here over is all my new kind of experiments. I've been doing things like putting down wash, and this is Yupo paper. Yupo is like it's synthetic, it's almost like plastic, like Mylar. Put that down, and then I've got these tools, the silicone tools with different notches in them, spaced differently, and so you can pull through and do different line work still. And then I do lino cuts, which are a form of relief printmaking. I roll out the ink and stamp. So this has one particular lino cut that I made, and I just kept flipping and putting printer's ink on top. So that's how I got these effects. These other ones here, this is a different move. Again, you can see line work, it's everywhere. And what I did with those is I use that Yupo paper in a different way. I roll out paint, then I take those same tools and I just pull through. I start doing lines. And it's a lot of experimentation. So I've got like 50 of these in my studio, and these are the ones that I chose that I thought were more successful. It's not that I don't like the others, but anyway, these are the ones that made it on the wall. And then I take rice paper and very carefully start at the bottom and place it on. If you just set it like that, you get all these kind of bubbles and it doesn't work. Anyway, so this process, laying out the rice paper, pushing your hands around to make sure you got enough of it, and you just pull. You pull it up, and there's your print. So I'm loving doing this stuff, and so like I said, I have tons of them, and I've got all these ideas about new ones to do. A couple of them are different, this one and this one here. So I, again, did another lino cut pattern, and what I did is same thing, did all the Yupo paper pulling through, and then I print, and then flip it, print, flip it, print. And it just turned out that they kind of worked together and looked like, oh, like that's kind of a nice pattern. So I liked it. And so that's why another colleague here, again, I'm not naming my studio artist. I wish they'd just let me do that. But said, this is your stronger one. And somebody else said, no, this is, whatever. I can use different colors. I use lots of teal because it's my favorite color. And I decided that I should not keep playing around with a broad palette. I should just use what I like. So that's why I have a lot of teal here. And so when you move to that next one, it's got teal. This was also an experiment with circles. I've done lots of pieces with circles. That was one of the first ones where I started doing this like stamping. What I call it stamping with the lino cut. Then this last section is similar. It's just black ink, so instead of using paint, I'm using black ink. The last series, these are abstract paintings, and I've never really learned how to be a painter, but I love playing with paint. Right? So like I said, I throw paint on the floor and do all kinds of fun stuff with it, and I do it large, and then when I look at it, I say, well, that's not so great. But what I do then is intentionally create lots of different textures and different juxtapositions of shapes, color contrast, etc. And then I take a mat with either 6-inch or 8-inch window or 4-inch and just start looking and finding different compositions that I think, wow, that's kind of cool, this painting. And then I just mark them, cut them, and slap them together with the mat and pop them in a frame. Yeah, that's probably all I should say.